Welcome back, YouTubers, to another TNA Impact Wrestling review with us. The British Fist.
Ka-ching.
British Fist. Ka-ching. Mr. Parkin here. This guy sitting next to me is none other than NJ, people.
What's up?
I think one day I really wish you'd just do the Gangnam style when you do that. Anyway, like this video down below. Comment your thoughts on TNA Impact Wrestling down below. And more importantly, don't forget to subscribe down below.
And make sure you contact us in the links in the description box below.
Yes, indeed. And after last week's cliffhanger where Tazz became a member of the AcesAnd8's, quite interested to see what they were going to do this week. And they opened up the show with Tazz and the AcesAnd8's. Tazz is trying to put across the AcesAnd8's as this great faction and a great higher power. And if someone puts a hand on him, he will own the place. And he has a little nickname, Teflon Tazz. No one can touch that motherfucker.
Okay, Tazz. The thing about you is that you're out there making a big deal. You're the smallest man in the block.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the AcesAnd8's, they look like there's too many members, and adding you to it is not really going to change the effect of the AcesAnd8's. So now I'm just wondering, now you're part of it. Yes, they try to make a big deal out of you in some way throughout the show, but what are you actually going to do?
Look, the Tazz reveal was surprising and provided us a compelling ending to the show. But if you really look at it, it's Tazz. You know, he's a color commentator. He can't wrestle anymore. What is he going to add to the AcesAnd8's faction other than a mouthpiece? And isn't anonymity supposed to be the key here? You've got about 4 or 5 members that are without masks, and he just revealed himself, you know, voluntarily in the main event of last week when anonymity is supposed to be key for this faction.
And the thing is, just like Devon, he was saying how well the AcesAnd8's are given in this bringing up to a higher stage in his career. And to be honest, yes, being involved with a faction instead of just being a commentator may be a step up, but I don't think your part in the AcesAnd8's is going to be anything too special.
And I think that actually sums up the whole AcesAnd8 storyline. The fact that it's gone so far down that instead of actually doing something that could benefit the group, they're actually just going for the surprise factor. Devon and Tazz, and what are them two really added to that group? Absolutely nothing. Sorry to start off on this Impact Wrestling review with a rant, but we felt that it was a bit long overdue and we didn't really cover it last week, so we thought we'd cover it straight away this week with Tazz. Apparently, from now on, he's going to be like a heel commentator. It's going to be touting the AcesAnd8's.
I did say this. Yes, he said, "You cannot touch me. I've got this contract, blah, blah, blah." But Hogan, yes, you may not have been there, but Sting was. He's like the second GM of TNA. The fact you should be looking out for Buddy Ray, Brooke Hogan. Why is Tazz not fired for laying his hands, a commentator laying his hands on other people? I just thought he may not be able to be touched, you can still fire his ass.
I think that was why they brought up the whole ironclad contract thing. Must have been why they did it. Anyway, let's move on from the opening segment. It was the correct opener for the show, but we just felt that something about Tazz needed to be said about joining the AcesAnd8's. Give us your thoughts down in the comment section below. Tara versus Velvet Sky for the TNA Knockouts Championship. The Knockouts generally draw good ratings, so it made sense to follow that from the opener. Firstly, thank God Velvet Sky is out of the gear she was in. She looked horrible. She's back in her normal gear. She looks much better. 2 minutes into the match, there was an advert, and during that advert, I thought to myself, I really used to enjoy Tara's matches. I used to look forward to Tara's matches, and now in Tara, I just see another cookie cutter heel who wins via a distraction, and I just no longer look forward to Tara anymore, and I no longer look forward to the Knockouts division because, quite frankly, as I said in the video on my channel earlier today, it's very stale. That's just how it feels to me. The Knockouts division is just really stale and unwatchable right now.
I thoroughly don't really enjoy watching Knockouts anymore. Yes, when I first started watching TNA, things were picked up. There was loads of going on, but right now, they're trying to get loads of Knockouts involved, as we've seen over the past few weeks, but this match I really didn't tune much into. Jessica Goddard's got involved. It affected the match a little bit for me, but overall, it was good to see the championship match. Obviously, now they're going to use championship matches on TV because of the pay-per-view being so far away, but there we go.
It looks like this match might happen at Lockdown, judging by the fact that she won by interference, and there's going to be a cage match. So this match looks like it's going to happen at Lockdown. Anyway, moving on. We had a Joseph Park promo, basically promoting his debut next week, even though he's been on Impact a couple of times now. But I guess they're trying to make a big deal out of the fact that it'll be Joseph Park's first match in the UK next week as, an official Impact roster member, I guess, and he's going to call someone out. Probably will be an AcesAnd8's member, I guess.
With Joseph Parks, I think now that he's actually gone through everything he needs to, he's part of the roster, he's going to be wrestling. I think he's emphasising the Joseph Parks a lot. I'm thinking maybe they're going to make him go through this, build up towards a championship, and then Abyss is going to break out. I think it just being the Joseph Parks thing, because obviously TNA knows comedy-wise. But I think his first challenger or his challenger, like he's bringing out, will be an AcesAnd8's member. Probably facing Devon again. He's just trying to make a surprise right now.
Always a compelling character, Joseph Park. I look forward to what he does next week. Who's he going to call out? It's open fight night next week, so we don't know. We had an X Division tag match. Kenny King and Zema Ion, I like to call Team Ego, versus RVD and Christian York, a team I like to call, well, RVD's Ego. It's your typical X Division action. Zema Ion gets the win from one of Kenny King's moves, so they end up having a little argument between them two. It looks like now, you think they're going to have a four-way at Lockdown, possibly, between... Now they've introduced Zema Ion in there. It seems like they're going to have a four-way at Lockdown, possibly.
Well, I'm going to compliment TNA on keep trying to get the X Division involved numerous weeks, trying to build up to something. Am I still interested in the X Division? Not really. I'm looking forward to them taking the title off RVD. Now they've got 3 other opponents surrounding him. I'm expecting it to probably be more of a likely chance that the championship will get taken off him.
I'm looking forward to them putting the belt on Kenny King, personally, but that's just me and the view of most IWC smarks out there. The hour main event was the segment involving Bully Ray and Brooke Hogan. The first thing Bully wanted to do was do something to Tazz, but he was taking business calls away from the commentary table to do with AcesAnd8's business. The whole segment was addressing what happened last week with Tazz hurting the people closest to Bully Ray. He's going to get the AcesAnd8's, and then out comes Sting saying that next week Hogan will reinstate Bully Ray, and, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because he's been at the Impact Zone every week anyway, even though he has been suspended. It's kind of similar to when the AcesAnd8's weren't allowed in the Impact Zone. It didn't really make any difference as to whether or not they won their match at Bound for Glory because they were still going in the Impact Zone regardless.
Well, with the suspension lifted hopefully next week, that means that Bully Ray will be able to wrestle, and as he said, once it's been lifted, he can go after each and every one of the members of the AcesAnd8's. I'm hoping it doesn't come down to Devon vs Buddy for the TV Championship, as long as this leads to, hopefully, once you've gone through the AcesAnd8's, Bully can then go up to the main event scene, hopefully become champion within this year. But again, this is all emphasising the whole big segment, shall we say, are involving the AcesAnd8's.
I just hope that TNA come to their senses and have, a big, because they had a lot of AcesAnd8's involvement in this show with Kurt Angle, Bully Ray, etc. I do hope TNA comes to their senses and say, right, we've got to end this storyline at Lockdown. We cannot take this storyline any further. Let's just end it in a lethal Lockdown match. I hope that is where they're going with this because I just want this storyline to end. There is no way TNA can save this storyline. They kind of did last week until you kind of realised it was Tazz. And he couldn't really offer anything to the group. Let's face it.
I'm just wondering, now they've got all these things we're going to go into next. We do have stuff that's involving the AcesAnd8's, but at the moment it's still not direction, it's just matches.
Pretty much, which they generally lose. Bobby Roode versus Hernandez. But before this match, we had Aries and Roode basically trying to get each other to face Hernandez, arguing over who should take Hernandez. The speed and agility of Austin Aries versus the power game of Bobby Roode, and then Bobby Roode ended up facing off of him. He got a win with a bulldog.
The horrible thing about this is that I did think the trying to get this match set was a bit off because they were like, oh, I don't want to. It almost sounded like I don't want to face him. He's probably he's better than me, so you face him. No, you're better than me. The back and forth was good. I just thought, it's only Hernandez. You two are main eventers, World Heavyweight Champions, and he's just a guy that's wrapped up in the tag team. He's not really, probably not going to quite make it to your level. So I think any of you two could have faced him, but the way it went down, Aries was correct. Powerhouse versus powerhouse, and then little guy versus little guy. So maybe we'll get that match next week.
I guess my one point against what you just said there would be the fact that if you look at Hernandez, he is a big motherfucker, and if you're Roode and Aries, you're probably not going to want to face him because you probably don't want to get your ass kicked. But let's face it, the fact that Roode went with a bulldog kind of showed how weak Hernandez actually is. And it looks like they're actually going to go with this Aries and Roode wet dream team versus the tag champs. And all I can say is, even though it will be a step down for Bobby Roode and Austin Aries, I can't wait for those titles to get off Los Stereotypicos. At least Austin Aries and Bobby Roode are an entertaining tag team at that.
The thing is, as much as they do work well together, apart from after the match, you saw them still arguing against each other. So they're a bit like Team Hell No. They may be a good tag team in the ring, but when they're not wrestling, they're still the big fallout teasing thing. But I will say this, I look forward to them progressing, but the main complaint I had last week is you're taking out two great main eventers, not just one, two great main eventers, and now we're left with Jeff Hardy up there, James Storm's not up there, we've not got as many main eventers there to make the main event seem amazing or great.
Be interested to see who they're going to push into that main event scene then, I guess. For now, it was Christopher Daniels, but before we get onto that match, Kurt Angle recovers pretty fast, doesn't he? The Cyborg returns to the Impact Zone to call out Ken Anderson to fight him an open fight night next week, which should be, I guess, an interesting face-off. They had a great match at Lockdown 2010, but let's face it, since then, Ken Anderson's character has just gone from there to down there, and even though I like Anderson, I just find it very hard to care about Anderson, especially when he's involved with Kurt Angle. I know they're going to have a great match next week, which apparently is going to be a steel cage match now, but it's very hard to care about Anderson right now.
Anderson, when I first started watching this, when he was in the main event scene, yeah, people were still saying, oh, Anderson's not done this, he's not done that. But I was an Anderson fan, I still am. Him going against Angle, as soon as I heard it, I thought, I swear I saw this match when I first started watching it. Yes, they did have a short feud.
When he was an Immortal.
And going for Anderson going for the championship of Angle. And it was in a cage match, so it's a repeated idea. But, like I said, I think this is going to be a good match. But like Terminator NJ tweeted, do you really expect Anderson to beat Angle?
Not at this point, no, you would say. I guess, it's funny how Anderson doesn't really have a great track record when it comes to joining groups. I mean, he joined Immortal, and from that point onwards, he became even less irrelevant than he was at the time. And now in 2013, he's joined the AcesAnd8's, and you got to imagine, like, how is this? He doesn't really stand out in the AcesAnd8's. Is the AcesAnd8's really going to do that much for Ken Anderson? Really, even though it at least gets him a TV spot?
The only thing I hope is that I don't really see it happening, especially against one of TNA's favourites, hence why he came back so quickly after the possible injury Angle. I would love to see Anderson get a win over Angle, but I'm going to agree with Terminator NJ, it's not really likely.
No fucking way. Then we get to our main event segment of the evening. Jeff Hardy versus Christopher Daniels for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, I've been eating a lot of Doritos tonight. As much as I love to see Christopher Daniels in the main event scene, going into this, ask yourselves this as fans, did you really think that Christopher Daniels had any chance of winning this match? Because if you can't suspend your disbelief that far, then you know there is a problem with either Jeff Hardy's booking or just your general feel of TNA's product. Because I just went into this match thinking, well, I can watch this match. I'll wait till the ending because I know exactly who is going to win. It was still a good match between these two, and Hardy gets the win, obviously. But I just couldn't suspend my disbelief enough, whether that's just me being a smark, I don't know. I couldn't suspend my disbelief enough to think that Daniels could win, and therefore I couldn't really get emotionally invested into this match. That's just kind of how I felt about this main event.
Going into this match, yes, I still think they're building up Jeff Hardy to beat everyone and then suddenly lose it to a surprise person, hopefully, unless they go down Aries again. But with this match, I was looking forward to it. We had Daniels coming out of the tag team kind of division and going to the main event scene. This is something that I like, been wanting to see. With the whole repeated matches against AJ Styles, I don't really see him progressing any higher than AJ, but then he got this shot. I'm hoping that this, even though he lost, is going to be a teaser of what is yet to come from him. This match was good. good spots. Jeff Hardy getting the win, even taking out Kazarian was the obvious finish.
Indeed, and then we get the aftermath with Tazz getting an interview with Jeff Hardy, and basically that was just a distraction to allow the Aces and Eights to injure Jeff Hardy's knee with the hammer.
So, Ace and Eights, you expect us to take you seriously when Tazz is a part of your faction? Tazz has been on the commentary table for week after week after week, saying stuff they expect us to give a damn about. Well, believe me, he's just like each and every one of you, absolutely worthless. And now we have Kurt Angle versus Anderson in a steel cage. And who are expected to win? A guy who's never there proving himself, or a guy who hasn't been the champion in a while and still that battles for us to give a damn what he has to do in the ring. Two worthless mortals in one steel cage. That is absolutely worthless, and what are TNA thinking? I don't give a damn what TNA have to do next week. A good faction's theme song.
And at the end of the day, if you look at it, they did this injury angle mainly because Jeff Hardy's not able to go to the UK. Now, the problem here is they're going to be doing 4 TV tapings from next week. One in Manchester and one in London, I believe. So, my question is, Jeff Hardy's not going to be there. 4 episodes of Impact Wrestling are going to be without the World Champion. And this is going into one of their biggest pay-per-views of the year, which is Lockdown. How is that going to affect the build? And the replacement is going to be Sting. So that's not got me too hyped for that. But how is this going to affect the build going into Lockdown? 4 episodes without the World Champion. It's a bit disappointing, really.
The sad thing I see is that when TNA go to the UK, it's going to be a good crowd, good reaction. The fact that Jeff Hardy's not going to be there, and especially if there are still Jeff Hardy fans in the UK, it's a big loss for TNA in my opinion. To take him out, yes, we're going back to the old days when the AcesAnd8's teased going after the World Heavyweight Champion. They've teased it again. I just don't think TNA have done themselves favours for doing this.
No, this is what happens when you put your World Championship on a guy that has a felony in drug trafficking. So, you know, that's down to your opinion, but it's the fact of the matter is the TNA World Heavyweight Champion is not going to be at 4 of the TV tapings, which, let's face it, is not a very good thing. What are your overall thoughts on this edition of Impact Wrestling this week?
I said this to you during the show. Yes, the main angles felt good, but for another week, I wasn't thoroughly entertained. Yeah. As much as I do compliment the AcesAnd8's trying to get involved again, trying for like a big thing, I didn't think this was the best show. I look forward to the deliverance of the tag team, the X Division, seeing what Jeff Hardy does when he comes back. But I just didn't think this was a good show.
The problem with me is the fact that the excitement for TNA just isn't there anymore. We've said this on various reviews we've done. The excitement hasn't been there in TNA since Bound for Glory. It's very hard to put my finger on, but I look at the main event tonight. Jeff Hardy versus Christopher Daniels, a good match, but one which I really couldn't suspend my disbelief on much. The AcesAnd8's angle, in my opinion, is just killing TNA's buzz. The Knockouts division is very stale. To some degree, you could say the X division is incredibly stale. There's some good stuff on this show, don't get me wrong, but this whole show throughout really doesn't do much to the imagination, really. It's just not necessarily that it's a bad show, it's just not very entertaining right now to us. And I think it's because we set ourselves a very high standard with the impacts that happened at the beginning to the middle and to the latter half of 2012, which were really very good. So we've given ourselves that expectation, which is up here, and now the impact level is down here, and that makes it slightly more disappointing when the impact level isn't that good.
My 2 problems are both Hogan, Dixie Carter have been complimenting on how well it's been over the last few months. But then all of a sudden they slip down, and this hence is why TNA Asylum have a few strong words against us, but I feel that TNA have a chance to climb back up, but I can't see it happen anytime soon.
Hopefully it will, because Thursday nights used to be really exciting for me, and now they're just not. So if you leave us your thoughts on this edition of Impact Wrestling down in that comment section below, Just any thoughts you have, let us know. Hand you over now to NJ.
Thank you very much for watching this review. Hopefully you've got some good and bad points to show. Please share them in the comments below. And until next time, YouTubers, goodbye.